This time on the Tamworth FC Social, we are very glad to be joined by Tamworth Football Club goalkeeper Jaz Singh. Thank you so much for joining us, Jaz. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. I'm good. I'm just nice to be on finally. Yeah, look forward to a good chat with you boys.
The big setup right at the start. I like it. I like it. Keen to kick off then. How have you found the last few weeks getting back to like the bread and butter business of the National League? I suppose after the massive interest around the Spurs game and a brilliant performance.
Yeah, it's probably what we needed. I think after the Huddersfield game, I think we had Ebbsfleet at home, and that was a big game, and it was very similar. We had Boston at home, where probably one of our best performances of the season. So, if there was any cobwebs or any, come down from the cup, it was obviously not clear to see. So, fair play to the boys because obviously in that Ebbsfleet game we weren't great, but we got away with a point. But in the Boston game, we were start to finish, we were brilliant.
And how have you sort of reflected since the Spurs game, like on your own performance? Because I think there was maybe three chances I remember thinking you've sort of pulled one out of the bag there and kept this at 0-0. Have you sort of given yourself a pat on the back?
I think I said it after an interview. I still conceded 3 goals, so I'm still not happy. But yeah, I've watched it back a few times, and yeah, it's always brilliant to see you making saves against these world class players. But you always, as a goalie, you always think, oh, if I could have done this, or if I could have organised the wall better on the free kick. It's just minor details that I like to think I could get right. But I take pride in how I played in the game, and well, how the whole team played in the game, really.
Yeah, so you should.
I guess I've got a well, hi Jaz, lovely to meet you.
Hello, mate.
Just on the Tottenham game, just to kind of follow on from that. I mean, it was some really interesting moments throughout that game. I remember seeing James Maddison's face about, I think it was about 89 minutes when we were going up for that corner, and Tom McGlinchey had that shot, and then Conley Liebert had the header, and then the shot. And I just remember seeing his face, and he looked terrified. It was something I'll never forget. But yeah, and a couple of other things I remember. Jordan Conley Liebert said something to Pedro Porro. I can't remember what it was, but it was quite funny what he did. But just in terms of that game, what do you think made the players just raise their levels? Because it was like, to be honest, it was like you brought Tottenham down to almost be a National League team, and it felt like, when we said it a couple of times, it almost felt like that it was there was National League teams that looked better than Tottenham during the season, as weird as it sounds. So it was just interesting to get your perspective on that, really.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I don't think you can literally pinpoint anything that we did. I think just, we've had it a couple of times this season, especially like the Huddersfield, for instance, was a perfect example of what we were used to, of just that electricity as we walked into the ground, that feeling. Obviously we walked from the coach across the back of the ground and into the dressing room, and you can just tell the lads were buzzing. Obviously, it's one thing, absolutely buzzing, another thing performing, and to be fair, as long as we stayed in the game, I know you hear it a lot of lads coming here and say it a lot, but it is a massive, massive part of our game. If we stay in the game, we will always create chances, and always the weapons we have will always cause teams problem. So yeah, it was a massive that we do the 15 minutes, got in 30 minutes, got 0-0, got in at half time. I think they had a little period just before half time. Me, Hayden, Jordan were just like, let's get us in, get us in, get us in. So it was just little wins for us, really. And then longer it went, like you said, down the hill. We know what we can do down that hill, and we cause teams problems, especially going towards that end. So yeah, unfortunately, we didn't nick a goal really at the end.
It was so unlucky. Like we just, yeah. I mean, driving home, just was thinking, God, it could have been so close. So I can't imagine what players must have felt.
Just thinking back to that game, it seemed to the whole time just seemed to go in kind of slow motion, and that's obviously just us in the terrace. So, I mean, how do you even go about for you personally, obviously you had newborn as well. How do you even set up to even start trying to enjoy an occasion like that? Because your head it must have been so full at that time.
As silly as it sounds, it was probably a good thing for me because I didn't really have a time to think about it. And obviously, like you said, because so much was going on in my head, you almost take it in your stride and just enjoy what it is. Obviously, a life-changing moment for me the day before. Lucky enough, everyone was well. So it was just a case of just enjoy what was to come, really, and appreciate what a day it would have been. So yeah, I can't really pinpoint. I just think it was an absolute whirlwind in my head, and it probably took the pressure off me slightly, just to go and enjoy it and not really think about what was going on, really.
How much difference from the Huddersfield game coverage to the Tottenham coverage was it because ITV obviously did a lot more coverage for that. It was the third round anyway. It was obviously a much more glamorous tie. But how much difference was the build-up to the Tottenham game to the Huddersfield one?
Oh, huge. I think on the Thursday in training, we had Sky, we had ITV, we had BBC there. ITV had to change the majority of the ground. It took 3 weeks before they actually started setting up. Obviously, all the stuff going on in the car park as well with the hospitality. It just brings it magnifies what was going on. And we didn't probably realise how big it was until probably the morning at breakfast when we looked at their Twitter feed and it was like timed at Helsinki, time of kickoff in Hong Kong, time of kickoff in Melbourne. It was a world global game.
Something I thought, Jazz, was really good about the whole FA Cup run in general, actually, was how it like shone a light on what it's like being a part-time footballer, and so many good stories, I think. And like, I'm just keen to sort of get your insight. Is there anything you think you're sort of keen for people to know, or is there anything that you've done it like discussing interviews that you're sort of really pleased you managed to get across?
Not necessarily. I think anyone in the part-time world knows how hard it is, and you need a strong core group behind you, which lucky enough I have. But it's long days. For instance, a perfect example is tomorrow. We've got a game at Wealdstone away. I'm working in the morning. I'll meet the coach at about 4 p.m, go straight to the game, get back at 2 o'clock in the morning, and I'll be up for work the next day. And that's just how it is. So we know what we sign up for. There's no moans and groans from us. It's just what it is.
It must be a really good spirit then amongst the lads to be able to you go doing that, every week, and going on those long Tuesday trips. There must be a sense of enjoyment though with doing that.
Yeah, well, you say that the next three are not the greatest. So let's see if we're still friends after the next three journeys. But yeah, you've got to spend time with these people. We enjoy spending time with each other, and I think every coach journey we have a great time. Hayden Hollis is a perfect example. He's had a great career, and he said this is the best dressing room he's ever been in, and that just shows we're a part-time team and we've got that spirit in the dressing room. And that doesn't just happen. That's obviously, it's made by the gaffer, by his messages, and made by like the lads that have been there quite a while. And if you buy into it, obviously it's brilliant. If you don't, you see the players that don't really buy into it, and they probably don't progress as much on the pitch, as silly as that sounds.
Because I suppose just following on from that is, to you, like what makes Andy Peakes such a successful manager over the past couple of seasons? Like what does he do that's driven the players to have these two promotions? I mean, it's incredible, really.
Yeah. I think the easiest way to say it is just makes football simple. I think these days with so many coaches and analysts and how the game's going, it's almost complicated by idiots is an old saying that the football is so complicated at so many levels now, where the gaffer just simplifies it. We want to attack, we want to put the ball in the box as soon as possible, as quick as possible, and if that's from a throw-in, for instance, or the ball out wide to get the ball in the box. It is what it is. We have a way of playing, and it works for us. And obviously, how it's worked is success on its own, really.
We had Andy Peaks on earlier on in the season, and he spoke about that journey that everyone had been on together from when he first took over. And I always think about, there was a game, I can't remember who would have still been in charge at this point. It was Stratford in the FA Cup. And I think where we are now, it is literally night and day compared to then. So aside from the obvious, what do you think the biggest difference is now?
Obviously, it helps that we're winning games well, obviously not as many as we want to or what we previously have, but it has helped that we've won games of football. That always helps any dressing room, the fact that we're winning games, and obviously we've won leagues. But yeah, it's like I said, what he's done is incredible for the club, and I think sometimes you don't realise what we did last year, how massive that achievement was to go back to back, and you almost get blindsided really because you're just so used to success. As I can imagine as fans as well, you used to success. So for something to happen as quick as that, you almost take it for granted a little bit. And as players, we take it for granted as well because this isn't going to last forever, and that's the way you've got to look at. You've got to enjoy these moments, and that's what I'd say to the fans: just to keep enjoying what we're doing.
I think it's probably even different from when we were first in the conference, probably 2004, 2005. Like even then, we would get probably ex-Premier League players who were on the way out and finishing their career, people like Bob Taylor. Whereas I actually think it's really refreshing that we haven't done anything like that. I mean, you probably don't see that as much now anyway as you filter through the leagues, because I guess that's probably credit to the way that everyone trains and performs now at that level. But I remember thinking back then as well, there was one season we had, I think it was Bob Taylor, Nicky Summerby, Julian Allsop, Adi Smith, Scott. They're all players that on paper you'd think this is like a top half, probably League One kind of team.
Yeah, the National League in general is just a completely different animal now. I remember playing in it when I was 18, 19, and Stevenage won it. We knew that Stevenage were the best team in the league, and that was simple as they were the biggest club in the league, they had the biggest fan base. This season, you do well to pick anyone that's going to win it, and anyone who's a big club. I'd say out of 24, I'd probably say 15, 14 clubs are big clubs, as silly as it sounds.
What do you think's been the biggest change that you've sort of felt going from the North to the National League?
As a goalie, it's just been the quality of finishing. I remember the first probably 5 or 6 games. It's probably after the Barnet game. I just couldn't believe the quality. I couldn't get near anything, and you almost start doubting yourself a little bit. But I've learned to adapt, and obviously I've had to up my game a little bit more as well. I think that's been the biggest thing, how ruthless teams are, really.
I mean, to be fair, you've been making some absolutely fantastic saves this season. That one against Aldershot last week must have been a save of the season for the whole league. I'd have thought. Unbelievable. How did you get to that?
I'm just going to say I just went for the ball and just put my arm out, but it was silly. It was weird because we conceded obviously 2 goals from corners, and we give a corner away, and I was just like, lads, please defend this corner because that save means nothing if this ball goes in the net here.
No, it was honestly incredible.
Thanks, mate.
Were you always a goalkeeper, Jaz, like from your early days playing football?
No, I was as every goalkeeper. We think we can play outfield. I was a striker, and then in the summer I play vets, and I play left back for my vets team, and that's how old I am. So that just shows how old I'm getting.
Could do a little 2-position thing then maybe for Tamworth if there's ever a shortage.
Yeah, I did say to Cal if he ever got injured. Obviously, Furlam's injured at the moment. I said, I'm ready, Gaffer. I'm ready.
So what do you remember the sort of point where you were like, I'm just going to go full out, try and be a goalkeeper now?
There wasn't an exact point because I still wanted to be an outfield player. It was just a case of because I was taller than everyone else, and I actually like throwing myself around in the mud or whatever it was back then. Um, I just persisted with it really, and I seem to be okay with it. And the older I've got longer arms than anyone else, and it seems to be made for me really. As silly as it sounds, I don't know why I put it off so long.
And what do you remember about joining Tamworth as well? Because I think I'm right in saying you are in terms of players who are at the club currently, you are the longest serving player, and I think it's impressive for a non-league club to have that longevity at one team.
Yeah, like I remember I signed. I went to meet Stourbridge and Tamworth on the same evening. And Mike Fowler and Tim Harris were in charge at the time. I had a relationship with Tim before Gloucester. And obviously the whole goal was to get back in the Conference North as soon as possible. And we had a great squad of players on the paper. We just couldn't get everyone out on the pitch at the same time for whatever reason. But yeah, it's just mad really how football works out. I remember the first game, St Ives away. I remember turning up, and I've only played Conference North football. That was the lowest I've played. So when I went to the Southern League and we turned up at St Ives, there was no one there. It wasn't the Astro that it was now. It was a bobbly pitch, and I could not believe it. I think me and Ryan Beswick said to each other, like, "What have we done here?" And they actually beat us 1-0 on the day, and that was like the biggest reality shock and come down I ever had really.
I imagine on that season there was quite that first season there was quite a lot of sort of Conference North players within that team, and I guess maybe there was sort of that expectation that probably it was maybe going to be a bit easier than what it could have been, or
Yeah, no, 100%. Like I've never played the level before. I didn't know what was going to happen and how it was going to happen. I think we beat Coventry under 21s in pre-season like 8-1 or something like that. So we were like, we've got the team here. We're gonna absolutely romp the league. But if football doesn't work out like that, and we were lucky to stay up. Obviously, a few managers lost their job, but I actually feel sorry for the managers because they just couldn't get players on the pitch at the same time. I had an injury at certain times, and other players did as well.
There was COVID as well, wasn't there, in between some of those seasons?
Yeah, so the year we were going to win the league, and that was the biggest disappointment for me because I still think that team and the football we played was probably the best football we've actually played. Even now, and I'll openly admit that we played some great football that the year, and probably were going to win the league if I had to put a bet on. And for one, obviously you can't change what's happened, and I think that was the most disappointing thing because I've never won anything as a player, and that's what you want to do as a player, to be that close and to get it taken away. It sounds a bit selfish, but for something that you didn't know about, it was tough.
You more than made up for it afterwards.
yeah, that's what I was going to
Yeah, I
worth the
know.
wait in the end.
Yeah, well, it was worth the wait. Yeah.
Do you think there's much of a difference between the Southern League and the Conference North? I mean, the fact that you obviously just went straight through it, but do you think there's a big difference there, or other than like the hybrid sort of team sort of thing?
Yeah. Well, you see, obviously, your Rushells, for instance, I know they've done well the year before, but they're struggling, and I know they're fighting now at the moment. But there is a difference, 100%. It's just quality, and you can see that the jump in between the leagues is just quality of player, and obviously these teams in the north are more attractive to players as well. So these young loanees will go to these teams in the north and the National League more than the southern. Really, in the southern you'll get your players that have been around, circulating the same teams with the same managers. Really, so I pretty much went to every game in the Southern League and had a beer with a player that I knew after the game. As silly as that sounds.
Just in terms of yourself then and your career history and how well we've done, like we had a discussion last season over which was our best season as a club. Would you say one of your personal best seasons has been over the last kind of 2 or 3 seasons, or have you got others that stick out for you?
No, 100%. Like I said to you, as a player, you want to win stuff and have them moments. And I don't know what the gaffers give me over the last 3 years, but it seems to be my best performance wise and numbers wise that I've had in my career, and I'm 30 plus now. So long may it continue, really.
I don't know what you're all drinking either, because isn't there like 4 or 5 of you that become dads as well this season?
Yeah, I tell you what it is. It's Guinness after the game.
How do you feel, Jazz, when you compare yourself to like other goalkeepers in Tamworth history? Because obviously you broke the record last season for the longest time without a goal conceded at the club, and we did an episode where we kind of discussed kind of some of the all-time greats, and I think we might have put you out on top actually, which feels like I'm sucking up a little bit.
And also, I can confirm this because Henry actually sent me this episode, and I did listen to it. So you're not just sucking up here, guys. So yeah.
Like, do you sort of look and think you're really probably in legend territory?
Yeah, it's mad when you say that, but it's stuff that you can pride yourself on because it means you've been consistent. And as a goalie, that's all you ever want to be, is consistent for your team. Obviously, we've won leagues in there as well. And then there's obviously been big moments, for instance, for the fans. The Burton away one is something that will stick out in my mind for a long time. So, stuff like that is always going to help me in these conversations. But the fact that I've been there, 6-7 years now, and played majority, probably 95% of the games that I've been there, it's almost like a self pride thing of that I'm looking after myself, that I'm consistent with my performance, and whatever the manager's been, because I have had a few managers at the club, he still picked me.
Would it be Dan Creaney who's kind of the next like longest serving after you? Do you ever sort of look at each other and think like, we've come really far here?
Yeah, I think a few of us say that, to be fair. Like Callum Cochrane-Mollett was there. He come halfway through the season where Dan was there as well. But we do have moments where we just like, we won the league at Redditch, and now we're playing at an ex-Premier League club at Oldham. Stuff like that is surreal. And it's good because we've got such a down-to-earth group that no one ever gets too above their station, and no one ever gets carried away. And I'm pretty sure you listen to the gaffer's interviews all the time. He never gets too high when he wins, and he never gets too low when he loses. And I think that's it spreads across the team, really.
I was just going to ask about this season. So, what's your kind of goals for this season as a team? I guess obviously it's the obvious one is to stay up, but now we're sort of halfway through the season. Are those sort of goalposts changing?
Not necessarily. Obviously, everyone writ us off at the start of the season without even kicking the ball, really. And the fact that we are competing with so many teams. I did an interview after the Aldershot game, and the guy who asked me the question just said, do you realise you're unbeaten against the bottom 10 in the league? And we're the only team to do that. So it's an amazing stat. But goal wise, it's obviously to make the home ground a fortress, which obviously we're trying our best to do, and to pick up these small away wins when we can, because obviously we know it is tough away from home for us, and there's no qualms around it. We do give up the ball a lot of the time away from home, but we stay in games, and we've got players and weapons that can hurt the teams as well.
Yeah, and you can see there's no doubt that you can always see the effort that the players put in the shift that the players put in every single game is just it's always there to see. Like I went over to see the Rochdale game, and it was very much like that. Just stay in the game, and I mean Rochdale were just passing it around, and they weren't really doing a lot. And then obviously there was the sending off, but still the players, everybody in the team just kept on trying. And all the fans that were there, the Tamworth fans, all really appreciated it. We all said it, and I think everybody just came and clapped the players at the end, as always do anyway. But you can appreciate that the effort's always there, even if there's a loss. So that's the best thing, really.
Yeah, 100%. I know it's easy for me standing in goal, but I can see these lads obviously working their socks off every game, trying to get to maximise their efforts and their talent on the pitch against very good footballers. At the end of the day, these players train day in day out, football players these days are almost like F1 cars. They're fueled and they're made to get these 1% out of themselves. So, if we have, like, for instance, that Rochdale game, we didn't have a training session before that. We meet up if we're on time, for instance, and where we've been late before. If we're on time, we have 10, 15 minutes to go through what they're going to do. So it's tough going sometimes.
Jaz, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. And good luck with the rest of the season.
No, I appreciate it, boy. Honestly, God, keep up the good work, boys, because I'm not just saying this, but a lot of the lads do listen, and I'm sure we'll get a few more on there. And it's good. It's good for everyone. Obviously, the club as well growing, and I know they're doing a lot of social media stuff, and this is part of it. So
thanks, Jaz. Thanks so much.
Jaz, appreciate it, mate.
Thank you so much. Thanks for watching. If you enjoy this video, please give it a like and subscribe to our YouTube channel.